So for somebody like this, who is going to have to go through some type of recovery process, how long does that process typically take for most people? I know that's going to be highly variable. And you've already kind of alluded to this, but let's just reiterate, what are some of the steps that somebody needs to do to get started?
So I actually put a lot of patients through a functional foot program, and either it's them transitioning out of custom orthotics and supportive shoes into a more minimal environment, or it is them coming off of an injury or foot surgery, and I'm trying to get them back to their return to function. I normally do this over 3 different phases. So phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. The first phase is just reconnecting to the sensory, foundational, stabilization aspect of the foot. So it could be release the feet every day, use the Naboso insoles, maybe a little forward lean to get your foot reflexively contracting or your digits reflexively contracting. And I have them do that every single day. There's like a little 15-minute series that I give a patient every single day, consistent, for 4 to 6 weeks. And why I do every single day, small doses, consistently 4 to 6 weeks, is because I'm trying to build behavior change, habits, and a lifestyle. So I need to, layer 1 has to be the sensory stability part. That once they have that, then I can start to add on more integrated strength. So it's going to be higher load between the foot and the core, still nothing, high ballistic dynamic aspect to it, because I just need now a foundation of strength, right? So you got sensory stability. Layer 2 is integrated strength. So I have exercises that they would do and integrate over 4 to 6 weeks. And then the third layer would be more of a functional dynamic demand, right? Is that higher load? Is it more like jumping rope? Is it kind of like a box jump? Bounding? What is it that's going to be a little bit more ballistic to whatever your demand is? And then I do that. So, and that would be another 4 to 6 weeks. So you're taking someone from 3 to 4 months really through this course. However, you cannot proceed to phase 2 until you successfully complete phase 1. So it might take people longer if they're not consistent with each of these different phases. And anyone who tries to fast track it, and they're patients of mine, they will come back and say, oh, I should have listened to you. You told me 20%, this number of repetitions. I only want you contracting your foot at 20%, or I only want you contracting your pelvic floor at 20%. And then they're like, no, because, type A personality, more. And then they come back to me and they're flared up because they happen to have a certain injury. And they're like, I should have listened to your 20%.
When all else fails, follow the instructions.
Exactly.
If we go back to that first phase, what are some of the challenges that people will typically face that might make them kind of question why they're doing this and might make them quit too early?
I think it's just the consistency. Sometimes when something is small dose consistently, and there's not this tangible change or this wow effect that people want, it's really the instant gratification of people today, that they just want, I do this, I get this right away. So it's a long game. And I will actually tell my patients those exact words. I'm like, this is a long game. You have to be in it for the overall bigger goal of what you're trying to achieve. And honestly, if you pull back in your life and you say, I'm going to take the next 3 to 4 months, 3 to 4 months in the big picture of your life is not long, right? I know each day at a time, you're probably like, this is ridiculous. I just want to go running again or whatnot. But I need people to be calm and committed and consistent. That is the biggest takeaway, is consistency. Consistent. Much better than 2 times a week for 30 minutes, you do a reset or a mobilization, and then all the other days you do nothing. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I love the consistency piece as far as building habits. I've talked about this with a former guest. Like, yeah, you can come and buy personal training sessions with me 5 days a week through January, but you're going to get a lot more sessions if you buy twice a week through the entire year, and way less likely to quit when it really sucks. So I love that consistency part as far as building in the habits. It really seems like people are not willing to go through a process of getting that result. Like you said, we want the gratification, we want to be on stage and have the pictures taken and blah, 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 but we're not willing to sacrifice for that. Yet that's where all the value in life comes from. If somebody were to be thinking about when to put this into their life, say it is somebody who's doing running or lots of events, I'm guessing the best time to think about starting this process would be in an off season.
Either an off season or coming off of an injury. So I always find that with some of the professional athletes that I work with, you know, to that level or caliber of an athlete, they're not going to rock the boat at all, let's say, as far as like implementing new concepts and philosophies from a movement or training perspective. However, if you get someone off an injury, they're now okay, they have a little bit higher investment in the process because they don't want to get injured again. And they're kind of starting not over, but a little bit, that this is the time to build those foundational concepts. If you're not coming off of an injury, then I would say yes, doing it during an off season, or when you know there is this period where you could be very consistent. Obviously, it's hard if everyone is traveling for the next 3 months to be consistent when you're in a different country or you're on holiday, or, you know, so you really want to make sure that there's that appropriateness of you being able to commit and stay to the program.
Gotcha. And it seems like the first phase, the priority is sensory. You really are trying to get your feet to feel again. Are there, you know, besides your products, are there other surfaces you want people to be standing on? Should they be exploring all kinds of different surfaces?
You can absolutely do surface exploration, let's say, where you want to use different durometers or hardness of surfaces. And this is something that I think is important for the listeners to understand, is that harder surfaces stimulate the nervous system more. So I would want you on, you know, a hardwood floor, just walk around your home barefoot. There's different pebble paths that you could walk across. Do you want to walk across the gravel and the grass? You're doing play within the natural environment. You could absolutely do that as well. I love more natural surfaces than artificial surfaces. And then, you know, you mentioned the Naboso mats, of course, walking across the Naboso mat, but it could be using vibration platforms. And then can you incorporate standing on one leg on these different surfaces? You're just trying to find that functionality. I know beams are really popular right now, so I just want to kind of throw that out there. As far as a beam, you could do beam work if you want. It does get you tuned in to focus on the foot and the way the foot is engaging with the beam. So if that's something that weaves into your lifestyle well, then that is great as another idea.
Yeah, that's something that really surprised me until I gave it a lot more thought. I would have thought the softer surfaces would have been best to get started, but the softer surfaces allow you to continue dysfunctional walking patterns. Is that right?
100%. Yes. So softer surfaces damp and create that sensory disconnect. And you can understand this by looking at research that looks at gymnasts and landing techniques and the accuracy of their placement through sensory stimulation on a hard mat versus a soft mat. And it's really interesting to see the accuracy of foot placement and body control on these hard mats versus soft mats, where you'd be like, oh, I need to like cushion because I'm landing from something high to protect me. But actually the accuracy of the movement and the foot engagement is much higher on that harder surface. So I'm very much into advocating harder surfaces, bring in more sensory stimulation, connect to maybe a variety of a range of harder surfaces, but like wrestling mats, yoga mats, you know, anything too soft and damped, even like living room carpet, all that does is create a sensory disconnect.
Interesting. Yeah, that's fascinating. I love the gymnast thing. I can totally visualize that, flipping through the air and having to slow yourself down. You need to make your body soft rather than making that landing soft to be able to control the movement. How would somebody know that they are basically about to graduate through phase one?
So really it's time as well. So even if you think after 2 weeks you're awesome and you're stable and you're ready to go, I will still want you to do at least 4 weeks. I believe it takes about 30 days to create a habit. And that's really part of what I'm implementing here as well, as we're trying to create habits and change, behavior change. So if you do the 4 weeks and you're good, you're consistent, maybe there was some foot fatigue at the end of the day, and now you feel like you have more endurance in your feet. So you might not have any pain, but it could just be postural endurance, foot posture endurance, and you notice that. Some people will actually say that they sleep better from it as well. Or if you have other tightness in the body that you do not correlate to the feet. Let's say lower back, which we know correlates to the feet, but let's say the listener does not know that you could correlate low back tightness to the bottom of the foot. And you're doing this consistent foot release every single day, you might actually feel less strain and fatigue in the lower back as well. So it translates up in the body. It's not going to be just tangible changes in the foot itself.
I see. So we'll notice certain things, certain signs and symptoms will be getting better, but the priority really is putting in the time to establish those habits before we move on.
100%.